All right, y'all. The news is out. And let me tell you this. From what I have been seeing in the headlines, this goes to show that the Katt Williams interview went over most people's heads and that most people out there are sleepwalking. Yes, they have no idea what is going on in this world or possibly what happened in civilizations before us. Now, I know some people might say, well, why do I have to care about that? I have to go to work in the morning. But that's exactly the reason why you should care about this type of stuff, is because you need to know who is controlling the system. And that is basically what has been talked about on this Joe Rogan and Katt Williams interview. It's so interesting to me that most of the headlines that I see that was trending on Twitter or social media, or as you see this news headline right here that says Katt Williams calls out Joe Rogan for his racist question, that seemed to be the topic that was trending all over the internet, which they both said in the interview that they didn't feel the question was racist, but they know that the internet is dumb, and so they have to address that. Plus, they go on to say on this article with, here's how Katt Williams ruined his credibility on the podcast, right? Did he really ruin his credibility on the podcast? I'm like, man, who writes this stuff, man? Why is it that they only pull the sound bites of when Katt was speaking about transgender, or he was speaking about why black people like menthol cigarettes, and if Joe Rogan is racist, or that was a racist question? Those were the things that were making headlines. But none of the points that he brought up about ancient civilizations, technology, how we were traveling through space and time many, many thousands and hundred thousands of years ago, how we knew how the planets orbit, how we knew about cosmology. None of this stuff, man. It's just, oh, Joe Rogan is racist. Let me tell you guys something, especially with what's going on in hip hop today. I actually did a report the other day about, I think that rap music can now be a possible distraction with the constant beefs and the lower vibrations in the frequencies of the music. Not just in the words, but also in the frequencies of the drum patterns. Yes, if you guys know about sound and chakras and study frequencies, you will know that most of the 808 kicks are of the lowest vibrations in the chakra, which Kanye did speak about this as well. So what I'm trying to say here is that there is obviously a plan and an agenda shift. And I want to say, man, I thank all y'all that reached out and have been commenting, liking, and subscribing. Like I said before, this is how we get the message out there. This Katt Williams interview was so powerful to me in some ways that I went back and started doing my research on ancient civilizations, on Egypt, on the Anunnaki, on the Aztecs and the Mayans. I started reading the books, these books right here that are very hard to find. And you know what's interesting is that I actually went and I started going through some of these chapters, and I tried to Google some of the chapters. I'll give you an example. Some of the chapters talk about, this book is very delicate. It's so old, it's falling apart. So I have to be very careful with it. Conspiracies of Secrecy, the Book of Lost Secrets, Vanished Continents. You know what I mean? Levitation, Flying Saucers. You know, some of these chapters I was trying to research on Google to see if I could find more answers on and more information. And guess what, y'all? A lot of it has been wiped off of Google. Can y'all believe that? So basically what I am saying here is that I think that there's actually an agenda in place to keep people dumb. And that if you're constantly drained with work and kids and school or your homework and what you got to do, you don't have time to think about this stuff, which is exactly the plan. They don't want you to know about the ancient knowledge. Let me ask a question. Is that the only thing that matters in this culture? Is that we just want to talk about the drama of Hollywood and the dramas and the beefs between comedians and rappers? Is that the only thing that entertains us, and all the female rappers have to talk about sex in order to push units and to get streams? There's something seriously going on that we need to pay attention to. If you look further down all of these movies and conspiracy theories and wild out theories, we can actually see that there's a lot of truth in these things. I was reading my ancient book. It talks about the ancient secrets and histories of civilizations. You can't even find this book really in any library, and it's hard to find online. It was actually a gift. A lot of people say, oh, well, why would the government do that? Why would the government do that? The government wouldn't do that to their own people. Let me ask you guys a serious question. Have some of y'all ever played the game called chess? I know that a lot of y'all play video games. I know a lot of y'all like to watch streamers play video games online because it's exciting watching a guy run through with the gun. It's so exciting that some of y'all have even started doing it in your reality. But let me say this. If you play the game of chess, you will start to understand that sometimes you need to sacrifice your own pieces in order to move ahead. That is why chess is such an important game to learn and to understand. And once you understand that game, I think that you will start to understand government and how they operate. Keep in mind, chess goes back before the biblical times. So I believe that it's a good game to know how to play. We know that there's a war going on, right? And I want to tread carefully with some of my words that I say here. But I think it's just time to start doing a little bit more thinking here. You know what I'm saying? In the book, it talks about a Hindu atomic war, an ancient atomic war that happened. They say that the countries are preparing for, possibly with all the billionaires that are buying bunkers now. Let me read this part to you right here. This is generated through the AI, which I don't appreciate because I don't really want AI generating information for me, because now they know that I'm researching this. But let me just tell you this real quick. It says some researchers believe that ancient India may have had nuclear capabilities or engaged in nuclear warfare. This is based on interpretations of ancient texts such as Sanskrit epic Mahabharata, which some say contains descriptions of atomic blast. Yo, man. And you know why? Let me show you this right here. Researchers find proof of an atomic ancient war. Let me pull this up. Listen, I was doing research on this and I was on Google. I pulled up the page and I said, let me read about this. Boom. Guess what? The page is gone. Why is the page deleted? It looked like it popped up once I refresh and then it goes away. Well, good thing I took a screenshot and saved the first half of it. Writings from a great many years prior appear to contain what could be deciphered as precise portrayals of atomic blasts, practically identical to the one in Nagasaki in World War II. Take the incomparable Sanskrit epic from the India called the Mahabharata. Pardon me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. It recounts fate and devastation with intrigues and appeared to precisely portray the impacts and repercussion of an atomic war. Now, supposedly they're saying that this war destroyed the ancient civilizations. But you know what, though? It gets even deeper than that, man. It also says that there was also technology of flying Vimanas and details of the ancient nuclear war, and that there was actually space stations in the sky. They were up in the sky fighting and then came down to Earth. I'm just saying, man, like we can really go deep into this, but it's not surprising to me that Google is kind of taking some of this information off of the internet to where you can't even find it. You really have to dig for it. Like, in order for me to find this page, I had to go to like the second or third page on Google in order to find this. Because, you know, most of the time when you Google something, you're just looking at the first page. But now I've learned that if I'm really doing some research on something, I got to go like 5, maybe even 10 pages deep to find like, okay, that's something that's speaking on what I want to read. Check this out, yo.
I mean, when we hear the story of Arjuna, he was up in another spaceship. It's the same story as we hear from another part of the world, from Enoch, who was up there, who learned the language. It's all different names, but in the base, the same stories. Arjuna was the one who was up there in the cities of the sky. And he was there many times, not only one.
The cities of the skies. You know, that's what I'm saying here, man. It's like, it's time to open up our minds and look a little deeper into what's going on here and what we might have been lied to and what they don't teach us in schools and what might have been removed from the history classes.
Between his visits on the sky, he always returned to the earth. Arjuna even gives the name of his pilot. The pilot's name was Matali, who brought him up there. And Arjuna describes that he saw hundreds of different vimanas up there. There were 3 cities in the firmament, not in heaven. Heaven can be a space of happiness. Now, Arjuna was one of the humans who was up there in these 3 cities. And he describes the 3 cities. He describes the fight. And he describes that there were many, many vimanas. Vimanas are different, have different shape.
If you're wondering what the Vimana is, the Vimana technology, the Vimana aircraft that are described in ancient Hindu Sanskrit texts are flying machines of varying degrees. The word Vimana translates to having been measured out or traversing, and were machines piloted by the gods, much like the chariots of biblical texts, most notably the one seen in Ezekiel's vision of the wheel. These flying craft came in all shapes and sizes and could travel at different speeds and distances. Some were land and seafaring vehicles, meaning that they also have UFOs that are in the sea, which others flew sometimes all the way to the moon or further. And a lot of people forget, man, about the pyramids, which are located in Africa. You know, Egypt is in Africa, in case for those of y'all that don't know. And I just can't stand having this conversation, but we're not going to go there right now about are Egyptians black and all that stuff. I'm not going to go into that topic right now. But yes, they are. And it's so funny how some people, because you've been stuck in America forever, you think that some of us haven't traveled outside of America. But just to let you know, yes, I have been to Egypt before, because I found it funny that some people in the comments were like, have you ever been to Egypt? No. It's like, wait a second, homie. You don't know me. And you should never assume things about people you don't know. And second of all, to answer your question, yes, I have been to Egypt. Here's a picture of me standing in front of the Great Pyramids of Giza. I'll go through my history of Egypt because, man, let me tell you something, man. I got footage all over Egypt, from Cairo to Alexandria to Luxor to some places that most of y'all probably never even heard of. And if you guys would like to see me put some of those videos up, please let me know in the comments. We could do some documentaries, man. Yes, the reason why I brought up the whole purpose of black people, Africa, Egypt, the pyramids, is because we know that hip hop, rap music is a black art form, or at least it originated that way. Looks like the government is doing their best to change that now, which will be a whole nother discussion. But don't some of y'all find it so strange that no rappers ever talk about ancient knowledge or history or some of the things that were going on in Egypt? Now, I know that rappers from back in the days did that, but currently, we have no rappers whatsoever talking about knowledge. I think that it has to do with the fact of what some people have said before, which I agree with, that the CIA had already started to infiltrate hip hop back in the early 90s. And now they have destroyed hip hop so much to the fact to where all the babies that were being born in the 90s that are now creating rap music now, their minds have been infiltrated to not go back and learn their history. While the government and ancient knowledge, just like Julius Caesar and all them, for the reason of us having the leap year right now, where did they get this knowledge from of the calendar that we follow? We follow the Roman calendar, which Julius Caesar got the information from Egypt, and he couldn't even get his calculations and his math right, which is the true reason why we have the leap year and the leap day, and some years are 365 days and some are 366 days and a quarter. Does anybody ever think about these things? No, they don't ever really think about these things. They're just like, oh, okay. Do y'all remember the part of the interview where Katt was saying, how could we not believe in aliens when we are now flying to outer space? Doesn't that make us now an alien? And not only that, but in the Bible, it talks about how there was a fight in heaven, and then God kicked Lucifer out of heaven and sent him down to earth. Or was it hell? We got to go back through that part of the Bible. When he talks about Lucifer getting kicked out of heaven and being descended down, doesn't this sound like the wars that were going on in the sky cities with the Vimanas? Try this one right here. Revelation verse 12, 7:12. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought back, but he was too strong. Okay, we saw this part. The great dragon hurled down the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to earth and his angels against him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accusers of our brothers and sisters who accused them before our God day and night has been hurled down. The triumphed over him. I got to tell y'all, man, after watching this Katt Williams interview, it's definitely going to make me start doing a lot more research, where I think is where we need to go and what we need to think. This picture right here is the temple of Tiahuanaco. I got to tell y'all, man, South America is an interesting place. I've been there, and I also have some documentaries and some footage of some, possible aliens and spacecraft have landed. So, yeah, man, if you guys want to see some of those videos, tell me in the comments. I'll start posting this stuff, man. I have lots of knowledge that I have yet to drop on YouTube. I just, have been just trying to keep it more so hip hop based. But now I'm starting to see that, the intelligence, people are hungry for the intelligence and people are hungry for the knowledge. And I think that now it's time for us to elevate our minds. A lot of this, I believe, is where we're starting to go back to. These were ancient civilizations like Atlantis that have possibly destroyed themselves. And we have to wonder, as a society, could we be headed in a similar path? Just like we explained earlier in the videos and in previous videos about these billionaires that are building bunkers. Could they be studying ancient texts and preparing for an apocalyptic time? Who knows, man? It seems like this goes back thousands and thousands of years before Christ, man. Like, we're talking 200 BC, older than 300 BC, built 17,000 years ago. The information makes Tiahuanaco one of the oldest human settlements on the face of the earth, along with the Gobekli. This information, if true, also undermines the theory of human migration to the Americas across the Bering Strait, already seen as an official and little thought. It is highly unlikely that nomadic hunters would have been able to build such an advanced city with so little resources and energy available. There's another part I want to bring up right here where Katt Williams had brought up ancient Egypt having already electricity and already knowing about medicines, which I'm sure we do understand that. That is in the Bible, but they don't really specifically talk about electricity as much. And that electricity was already here way before Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla had figured this out, okay? But, and then like Joe Rogan said, and it's funny how Joe Rogan kept asking Katt, like, well, how do you think they did that? Like, come on, man, as if you didn't talk to all the people that you spoke to. I forgot all their names off the top of my head, but all these guys that told you that there was obviously electricity in ancient Egypt. I'm sure Joe was already aware of that, but I understand that Joe's playing devil's advocate. It says right here on Google, which is surprising, medicine, electricity, and physics, etc. were greatly advanced. Gold objects from ancient Egypt were finely gold-plated, and this requires the use of electricity. It is also claimed that they used electric power in their weaving plants. A lot of y'all said that, oh no, that's impossible. Like, he's wrong about the pyramids. But is there a possibility that the pyramids might have been built using electricity? This is an interesting part right here too. The electric catfish of the Nile was well known to the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians reputedly used the electric shock from them when treating arthritic pain. They would use only smaller fish, as a large fish may generate an electric shock from 300 to 400 volts. See, now we're going down this rabbit hole. Were the Egyptian pyramids used for electricity? While many theories have been proposed about how they were built, some researchers believe that the pyramids may have been more than just tombs for pharaohs. Yeah, I think we're all starting to figure that out. I mean, some of us that have been to Egypt, we already know this. But yes, for those of you that don't know this or still believe in old stories, they may have also been part of a sophisticated power grid that harnessed hydrogen as a fuel and transmitted electricity wirelessly through obelisk. I remember seeing some pictures. Now these are the interesting hieroglyphics right here. If I pull this one up right here that we see. Now we all know that there's some hieroglyphics that show spaceships and show all kinds of stuff, even things that look like helicopters. I mean, we've seen all kinds of stuff, but this right here looks like a pharaoh that's holding a light bulb that's generated. And this was done thousands and thousands of years ago before Christ on an ancient hieroglyphics carved into the stone wall. Let's look a little deeper, man. Let's look a little deeper into the things that maybe we haven't been taught. And then let's also look into the things that we have been taught. And let's question some of them. Let's question some of them. Don't believe it just because you were taught it in school or by your parents and you were raised to believe this thinking. Maybe it's time for some of us to start thinking outside of the masses. But I appreciate the fact that at least Katt Williams went on Joe Rogan and brought this information to the masses that I know that some of us actually study.